Hey everyone, Chris here with our main man Ken. It is Great Stories Comic Shop Talk, coming at you with a little bit of Spider-Man action. I mean, we're going to keep to the theme we've been doing the last shoot or two, right?
Spider-Man coming at you.
Nick Spencer Spider-Man.
Nick Spencer and I'm gonna say Nick Spencer and Patrick Gleason.
Yes.
I mean,
We've
we did
brought
have
it to a new level.
we do have a Mark Bagley issue in here, but gosh, I'm really loving Patrick Gleason's artwork on this run. It's just
It is
like
creepy, sinister.
Yes.
All those things just make your skin crawl.
yes. I mean,
Yes.
gosh, the maggoty, crawly feel is
Oh.
just so gross.
There's a panel in I think the last issue that just had me like, literally, I probably wanted to throw up. I kind of gagged a little bit, like something might have come up a little bit. Yeah, it was that. Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about the events. Like, what's gone on in Peter Parker's world here?
So I believe the last time we spoke about this series, Peter had run into Kindred, and Kindred had snapped Peter's neck after like showing Peter all these like moments where he failed and failed and failed.
Yep.
Peter basically begs him for an end. It's like, go ahead, just do it, kill me.
Yep.
And he's like, Kindred's like, all right,
Yep.
and cracks his neck. And you're just like, holy shit.
Like, this is it.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. And that was
Spider-Man's done.
And that
Yeah.
was it. And then we didn't get any more Spider-Man for
Right.
And that was the end of Spider-Man. So,
Yep.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah. It's been nice. It's been real.
No, but so okay, we get issue 53.
Yep.
And it's set in this like kind of like a dream world, right? Where
Yeah.
Peter's having this dream of a party, and he sees like MJ's there, Harry's there.
Yep.
A lot of these people in his life are there. I think Gwen Stacy's dad was there. I think Jean DeWitt was there.
Yep.
All these like people that had died from his past were like at this party, and I think it was a welcome home party for Harry, right?
Yes, that's right.
And
right.
at the end, it kind of just goes through these like different these different like scenes of Peter navigating through the party, and he's constantly trying to get to MJ, and he just can't get to her.
Right.
And at the same time, we see a lot of these parallels that are being drawn with I think Brand New Day or One More Day. Basically, the series where
Yep.
I think to go back to what happens in One More Day, it happened at the coming off of Civil War, and basically the world had found out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yes.
And at the time, Marvel editorial needed some way to kind of undo that, because you couldn't just have Spider-Man running around with his secret identity exposed.
Right.
And they are also struggling with the fact that Peter Parker, as a married man, might not connect with like new and younger readers as easily as kind of like bachelor swinging Peter Parker of old. So kind of to undo a lot of this and take care of two birds with one stone, they had this story arc where Aunt May gets seriously ill, and she's gonna die.
Yep.
Or does she die? She dies, I believe.
I think she does.
She dies.
Yeah.
And Peter is obviously very distraught about this. And in order to bring her back, he makes him and Mary Jane both make an agreement with Mephisto, the devil,
Yep.
that would basically undo their marriage, erase everyone's knowledge of Peter Parker as Spider-Man. I believe they also brought back Harry Osborn from the dead in order to basically save Aunt May.
Yep.
And one of the interesting things that happened at the end of that series is that after the deal is struck, MJ whispers something to Mephisto's ear. And it's always been a subject of much speculation what it was she said to him. And it's never been revealed. I think that's where Nick Spencer is going with this series, is that he's trying to look at the ramifications of that deal with the devil.
Yep.
And not only from Peter Parker's standpoint, but also Mary Jane's, because she was also complacent in making that deal.
Yep.
And how that one deal with the devil has since like spiraled, and how it's affected the lives of everyone around them.
And the devil in this case being manifested as Kindred?
Well, I think there's certainly some relationship between Kindred and Mephisto, as we saw. So when we see after the party, at the end of the party, Harry kind of reveals himself to Peter, like, "Hey, I gotcha," right?
Yeah.
Which was kind of not that climactic because we already knew.
Yeah.
As a reader, we've already known that Harry is Kindred.
Exactly.
Now, honestly, I had suspicions that it could have been other people, but maybe that was just to drive the point home. It's like, no, actually, it's really Harry. I forgot what my point was.
So you're basically tying together that, that Mephisto,
right.
This thing that whispered by MJ is going to somehow arise or reveal itself.
Now, I think that, I think whatever she said to Mephisto, which we don't know what it was, but I think that will have some relevance here.
Okay.
As far as what Kindred's relationship with Mephisto is, we definitely, at first we thought like this was just like Harry Osborn just having like another episode, another mental breakdown.
Right.
But it's been shown time and time again during this fight that he's clearly not human.
He's at another level here. So
yeah, at one point, Spider-Man punches him in the face and like kind of busts it open, and it's all just like bugs and maggots. And then he shoots his webbing like through his head. And do you remember that?
Yes,
yeah. It was just crazy.
It was, yeah.
And so obviously we're not dealing with, something that we're clearly dealing with something supernatural here.
Or, just to play devil's advocate, since we're on the Mephisto wavelength here, could it be something that's a little bit more like a chemical thing, twisting reality? As a potential?
Possibly, but I feel like with all the references that they keep throwing back to One More Day, Brand New Day, with all the references that Kindred keeps making about like, keeps referring to this deal with the devil, it just feels like it's something supernatural. And
I would
also
agree with you.
Beyond his ability, like his ability to regenerate.
Yep.
During his fight with Spider-Man, he continues to kill Spider-Man and then resurrect him from the dead.
Right.
Which also is horrifying.
It is horrifying. Yes.
And so he's killing him,
Yep.
showing him this situation where he failed his friends and people have died because of it, resurrecting him, killing him,
Right.
showing him something else horrible, resurrecting him just to kill him again over and over again.
Big torture pattern.
Yeah, that was a crazy issue.
And so, well, that brings us to have we actually broached the subject of issue number 55 yet?
No.
No.
So at the end of, was it end of, actually,
that was
end of 54.
Yep.
Okay, so at the end of 54, this is where like he's sort of getting to the reason, like he's trying to explain to Peter why he's putting him through the ringer.
Yes.
And Peter just thinks like, oh, you're trying to punish me for whatever, something that I'd done in the past.
Yeah.
And while that is technically true, Kindred's point is that he wants Peter to confess.
Confess, right.
Confess about your sins. Like, he keeps going over this, like the sins of the past will always catch up with you.
Right.
But the only way to kind of resolve yourself of these sins is to confess.
Right.
And Peter is sort of in denial about what it is that he wants.
He has no idea what he's reaching for here.
Right. He's like, what do you want me to confess? What is this?
Yeah.
And part of you wonders, like, does Peter really not remember this? Because it almost seems like he does, but like he almost is mentally blocking that from his memory. Because there was, when we get into issue 55, issue 55 was, I thought, fantastic because they brought back a lot of classic Peter Parker Spider-Man, a lot of like stuff from like Silver Age Spider-Man.
Yep.
Specifically, Peter's like original battles with Norman as the Green Goblin, and Harry's talking about this one particular battle where, after they duke it up and duke it out, and Green Goblin's defeated, Peter basically allows Norman to kind of walk away because he has amnesia. And in Peter's mind, he does this because, Norman's forgotten that he's Green Goblin, so he no longer poses a threat, therefore it's okay.
Yep.
And Harry brings it up to the point that the real reason that he kind of let him walk away is because he forgot that Peter was Spider-Man, and that had he, he told Harry or told the authorities about this, that maybe they could have gotten him help, but in doing so, maybe Norman would have revealed, like he would have remembered, oh, hey, Peter
Selfish motives, basically.
So it all comes back to this idea that Peter Parker does all these things, and he doesn't always have the most altruistic motives. That maybe a lot of the times the things that he decides to do are more selfishly motivated.
Yeah, right. He's making himself feel good. Like all these good acts are really about him.
Yes, like he's doing the right thing for somebody because he's helping them. But in reality, he's doing it in order to kind of protect his own neck. And then the fallout, unintentionally has these major repercussions on the people around him, his friends and family.
Road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right, exactly.
Type of theme.
And Harry's point is that through all of his good intentions and terrible decisions, Peter, for the most part, has survived it all, and has been mostly okay. But his friends haven't been so lucky.
Right. Yeah. It's some pretty heavy themes here.
Totally. I mean, I think this theme of of doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, right? And whether or not that is in fact the right thing.
Right.
These ideas of morality and sins. It's really fascinating. Really fascinating stuff. I mean, there's just so much gray. I think for a character like Spider-Man, where for a lot of Spider-Man, it's just like he's good, these guys are bad. There's not much else to read between it.
Well, that's just it. I don't think I've ever remembered reading a storyline where really there was a questioning of Peter Parker's inner being to that extent before.
I think the only time you ever see that, I think, would be like his first appearance, where he kind of he has that moment where he lets that the thief go, that eventually comes back and murders Uncle Ben. But I think at that point he learns that lesson that like, hey, I gotta do the right thing.
But as a mature hero, basically,
ever since that point, I think that was a turning point for him. Ever since then, it's always like doing the right thing, right thing, regardless of the costs. I do the right thing.
Right, and he's been kind of like probably Marvel's closest equivalent to how I view a lot of some of the characters that I don't find as interesting. DC has some of these characters, Batman being an exception, but you have like Superman.
Like Superman, sure.
Like all good, like total like milk and cookies. Goodness, right?
Totally. Spider-Man is definitely Marvel's moral compass.
Yeah, exactly. And so to kind of throw this at you is kind of like it's far afield from what I really envision him as, and I think that's kind of it's a cool theme to kind of throw at Spider-Man at this point. And Nick Spencer, I'm not surprised it's Nick Spencer who creates this ambiguity for us, right? With his history. But so leading into issue 55, let's talk about the events that transpire there. So we've got the whole, family is like this big thing, right? That becomes a theme of this run, right? And it's not that, even though it's mentioned that Peter Parker is an orphan of sorts, right? But his family has become basically these people who he's inspired to become heroes.
To wear the spider.
Right. So it is the Spider family, and they're the ones that have now been put at risk. They're the ones that might, face this horrible end, in front of Peter's eyes, even though he's just miraculously been raised from the dead himself various times here. But now is he going to have to watch his family suffer the same fate? But then there's one person, I guess, who is above all of those, right? That seems to become an even greater, how should I say, that rises in greater importance than any of those other folks in his family, and that is
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane.
I think before we talk about Mary Jane and her role in this,
Yep.
I think what was also interesting that we have another dinner, like another family dinner. This isn't the first family dinner that we've seen.
Okay.
You remember in one of the earlier arcs, I think it was during Sin's Rising, I believe Kindred had dug up the bodies of like Gwen Stacy, Captain Stacy, Jean DeWitt,
Yes.
and basically invited Peter to a dinner with all his like
Yeah.
dead, deceased loved ones.
Right.
And now he's arranged another dinner, this time with his new family, his spider family. And
Right.
you kind of like, it kind of sets that has that undertone that like, we kind of know where this is going. This is not going to end well for these people. We're practically looking at another dinner for corpses.
Yeah, pretty much. That the imagery there is very stark. It's very I don't know.
It's very well done. It's like,
Well done. It's foreshadowing.
it's this, these repetitive themes that he keeps putting in through his stories, which it's very mature writing especially for a title like Spider-Man, which you don't always expect, like, this high level of storytelling.
Right.
But during this most current dinner party, Kindred's basically like taunting Spider-Man, being like, "Look, here's your new family. They're all going to suffer the same fate because of your actions."
Right.
And then he brings in the guest of honor, Mary Jane Watson. And Mary Jane comes to the party not as a captive. She comes of her own free will.
Yeah.
And almost like she knows of Kindred's plans, almost like she's in on it. And the way that she speaks with Kindred, there's never any fear, right? It never seems like she ever feels threatened by Harry. She never really feels like she's in any danger. Whenever she speaks, it's all very matter of fact, just like, "Peter, calm down. Harry, stop hurting Peter."
Right.
And it's very, it's very terrifying.
And what struck me about that was that I would have expected more surprise from Kindred that Mary Jane knew who he was.
Yeah. So, and I think this is where what kind of these threads are what kind of lead me to believe that there's a tie-in with Mephisto and the Brand New Day. What I suspect is that what Mary Jane had whispered to Mephisto was, as like sort of a addendum to their contract, was, "Don't let me forget this. Like, always allow me to remember what I've done."
Okay.
And what has transpired here, and what has happened. And maybe as part of that contract, when they brought Harry back, that's when this character of Kindred was also created. Maybe this Kindred was created from this alternate timeline where Harry, maybe he wasn't brought back, or maybe this was like the repercussions of bringing Harry back is this Kindred character then was created as kind of like a dark mirror of, like, the normal Harry that came back to real life. And maybe she knows about it, and maybe she's aware of all this stuff, and maybe she's always been aware of it.
Yep.
And that's pretty crazy to think too.
Yeah. I think that you're onto something potentially there.
So at the end, we have basically Mary Jane is parlaying with Kindred.
Yes.
Right? And she makes an offer about how to really get to Peter. And basically she says, if you really want to hurt him, kill the thing that he loves the most. Says, kill me.
And her bid to save Peter, it's, offer up something on the silver platter. but Kindred, I think he pushes back on that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So there's still a little bit of humanity in this Harry Osborn, maybe.
I mean, he's still whatever he is. He's still somewhere. He's still Harry,
Yep.
and Mary Jane is one of his dearest friends.
Yep.
And he can't really bring himself to kill Mary Jane. And while they're having this argument, Green Goblin, Harry's dad, shows up to the fight, and he came bringing the pumpkin bombs.
And it seems like she and Norman were in league on this.
Yes.
Right? So they were. So you would suspect that Norman was the one who revealed to Mary Jane who Kindred was.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. You know what? I didn't put that together, but yeah, I think you're right. Because that would make sense. Because Norman was the one that had actually revealed to us as a reader that Kindred was his son.
Yes.
And then clearly there was like a communication where Green Goblin Norman was like kind of had surveillance on Mary Jane as she entered Kindred's lair to join the dinner party.
Right. So yeah, that's true, because we don't necessarily know that that Norman and Mary Jane put this together. Mary Jane could have been acting of her own volition.
That is also true. That is possible, and maybe like Norman knew that she would go see, try to go see his son, and was just tailing her.
Right.
And yeah, that's possible too. I mean, I don't know.
Could go a couple different ways here, but
I love it. I mean, I do love the sense of mystery. This is, I think the greatest thing about this run actually since Rising is this sense of unknowing and just constant dread.
Yes.
And they haven't been afraid to really pull some. They haven't been pulling their punches.
No.
They've delivered some moments that have literally made me like exclaim out loud, like,
Yep.
"Oh my God!"
Right. Yep. Now, this is definitely this is not your kid's Amazing Spider-Man book right here. This is definitely we're playing for the probably older crowd, I think.
I think so.
We're
Which makes sense because we're also talking about a series that is going back and dealing with series from the past, stuff that somebody that's been reading Spider-Man for the last 5 years, just reading the monthly title might not be familiar with.
Right.
But for anyone who's been reading Spider-Man for decades,
yes,
this stuff has a lot of weight. It carries a lot of meaning because Brand New Day and One More Day were not the most warmly received story arcs when they came out.
No.
As you can imagine, changing Spider-Man in such a drastic way, with just like a deal made with the devil, seemed just so out of character for Peter Parker that it had a lot of fan backlash, and I think rightfully so. So,
and the callbacks even go back further than that too. They go back to we're probably talking like early 70s era.
Yeah, I mean they were talking about like Amazing Spider-Man 40, which is like it's late 60s, early 70s, so, like Spider-Man 97 where he fights the Goblin that time.
That's right.
And it's great that Nick Spencer obviously is showing so much passion and love for the continuity, the history of Spider-Man.
Yep.
And trying to bring in some of these older storylines, even some of these storylines that maybe weren't that popular, but trying to incorporate it in a way that kind
they're
like
still
pushes the
relevant and
character.
important.
Yeah, in ways that are still relevant, still push Peter to become to evolve, to experience new I don't know, I won't say adventures, but it's really. I think it's just a really good arc.
Do we have any predictions on where this is going to go?
None. I mean, at the end of this, Mary Jane is like dying in Peter's arms. Yep. She's not quite dead, and she says, "Hey, you won't get rid of me." But man, I don't know. I mean, like I'm pretty worried about MJ. I think the Spider families kind of make it out okay,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, Peter's going to survive this.
Yep.
But the
But
fact,
there may be some cost.
yeah, the
here
fact that
that is incurred.
so much of this hinges on Mary Jane and Peter, and like how prevalent of a symbol Mary Jane has been, not even just as a character, but as
Yep.
this constant in Peter's life. It has me really worried about her safety. What about you? You got any predictions?
Well, I honestly think no one is safe because this is Nick Spencer. So
Yeah, I mean, anything's on the table.
Yeah, it's all on the table here, and I think that's a good thing. I think, I think just from a larger standpoint, even though Amazing Spider-Man has always been a more family-friendly type of title, I do think there's a reason why they brought a Miles Morales Spider-Man into the play for the new generation, to appeal to the younger generation, and I really do believe that it allows I think guys like Nick Spencer, the creative teams, to come in and maybe do some stuff that's a little bit more bold, right? And with Peter Parker. And
It was totally unexpected. I mean,
And-
I think when we picked up, I think we may have reviewed some of the early issues when Nick Spencer had relaunched Amazing Spider-Man, and I remember how fun it was. It was like Kim and like Ryan Otley, and like
Yep.
it was like this, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, just like fun, kinetic adventures, a lot of quipping, a lot of wisecracking.
Yep.
There was like an arc where like him and Boomerang were roommates, and like it was just like really like slapsticky kind of like fun. And
Total contrast.
it was
Yeah.
incredible when Sins Rising came out and we started reading it, and you basically told me like, dude, this Spider-Man run is like pretty dark.
Yeah.
And I remember reading it being like, wow, because I had basically fallen off after a while, because after so many issues, you're just like, oh, okay, I've read this before. This is,
Right. Exactly.
I've
We're
seen
not
it.
charting any new territory
Right.
here. We're
It's fun,
Yeah.
but there's
Yeah.
like so many other books that I'd rather spend my time with.
Yeah.
And when Spider-Man surprises me and is unexpected like this,
Yep.
I mean, I just love it.
Yeah, me too. And so I don't want to make any predictions about where it's going to go. I just kind of want to let the creative team take us for the ride. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have not been reading this title, you should. If you are especially older comic fans like Ken and I, not that Ken's very young compared to me, but
I'm not.
just want.
Don't let the
But-
hairline fool
So,
you.
But yeah, we have been longtime fans and longtime readers, and these stories really are we're bringing it into a much more sophisticated and an adult arena
Yeah.
for the character, and I think it's very welcome.
Well,
It's
I
very
think if I did one other prediction I will make, that I do think that we
Okay.
will learn what MJ whispered to Mephisto.
I hope we do.
I think that's been something that's been haunting fans, for decades. So to get some closure on that would be incredible.
That would be. Yep. Here, here. So maybe 2021 will give us the reveal. But any other final thoughts or?
This cover.
Oh, that cover.
This cover is incredible. I mean, this is probably one of the
A spider web spider head.
spiderweb spiderhead.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a web head.
he is a web head.
He's a web head.
Truly, yeah.
It's such a cool idea.
Mhm.
It's so well executed.
Yep.
Just like the stark black and white imagery. It's really not that often that I'll see like a Spider-Man cover that screams, "I'm doing something new. Look at me."
Right,
This
Right.
cover did it for me. It just hit me in all the right places.
definitely. It's a very, I don't know, Halloween-y type of feel to it. I really liked it. I really liked it. It's Tim Burton meets Marvel.
Yeah, it's almost
You
kind of
know?
got like a Nightmare Before Christmas vibe going to it,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely check that one out.
Yeah, this is a good one. I mean, for the content, inside, outside,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Spider-Man is definitely firing on all cylinders right now. I am super stoked to see where this goes.
I think we have no choice but to talk about it again next month.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think we really need to see this through. The story has been that amazing. No pun intended, actually.
No, pun intended.
Pun intended. All right, fine. And so we'll definitely be talking about this more. And we thank you very much for tuning in. And we'll be back with another segment shortly.
Nice.
All right. I think I'm going to shed the